Only Murders in the Building is back this week with episode 4, which was titled Dirty Birds, focusing around the 5 birds that were said to be present on the night that Nikki was murdered. Within this episode, we saw 3 of them being interrogated by the trio and devising a plan to make sure that their name was kept out of the spotlight when the trio were naming their suspects in their podcast. With an ending that showed that the new mob was in full effect and that the missing finger that we believed was Jay Flug's wasn't actually his because it was from a lefty. Let's dive into this video, look at what clues there could be and explain the ending. Here is Only Murders in the Building Season 5 Episode 4 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The ending explained. The key theme that's at the heart of this season is the new mob versus the old mob, and the past versus the future. This was seen with the way that the billionaires were essentially acting and how they lured Mabel, Oliver and Charles into a false sense of security in making them believe that they had nothing to do with it. But also as well with the likes of this new robotic doorman, Lester, a robot that was being trained up to be a part of the Arconia and push it forward into a new era. Just like what we saw with the city changing with the handing over of the power from the mafia to the billionaires in the underworld. During this episode, Jay was invited round to Oliver's with the hopes of interrogating him and finding out why his finger was missing. However, when he got to the door, one by one, the other billionaires then started to arrive. Camilla did, and then Sebastian, who's also known as Bash, did as well. They initially made out like they were gonna turn on each other, but when they were all split up, their stories then started to add up. They all said how Nikki stormed into the room after being on some kind of substance, was angry, deluded, and was waving a cleaver around. They all then agreed that Jay acted like a hero, got in the way, and that was when he ended up losing his finger. The 3 of them then fled the gaming room, and that was the last time that they all apparently saw Nick. When Oliver and Vince compiled their murder board, they made out like there were 5 people that were in the gaming room that evening, but on the board there were only 4 photos. This meant that there's somebody out there who knows something, but they don't quite know who it is just yet. I wonder if it could be this new doorman, as he seemed to arrive at the perfect time. Or this 5th person could be the person who's missing that left finger. This was also made apparent when Mabel got a call from Wonderfy after writing to them and looking to secure a podcast deal, and she got a response. Mabel ended up getting a response because she told Jay Flug, who along with the 2 other billionaires became the new majority stakeholders, and following the 3 of them rushing to sign the contract without even looking at it, it then meant they were now locked into a 3-year deal and they weren't allowed to talk about anything that went against the stakeholders. So Jay, Camilla and Bash were essentially playing the trio when in their apartment that night. It was all just a game to them. This was also said best in the closing monologue. The easiest way to win a game is to make your opponent think they're playing a different game, and that's exactly what they did. Jay lured Mabel in, sold her this story about how he lost his finger and that he was just a normal guy because he wanted to prove to people that he wasn't just somebody who messed things up all the time. Something that also tied into what he said at the start of the episode when he did his live video in saying that he wanted people to think that he was normal, when in fact it was all for the camera. And it was something that Mabel also related to because she was feeling inferior because Thea was now living in the penthouse in the Arconia when she had a studio apartment. And as well, Thea once caused all of their friends to turn against Mabel when they were younger. Prior to Thea arriving, Mabel was finally content with her life and what she was achieving, but Thea entering the picture has made her vulnerable and showed a weakness that Jay was able to exploit. With Mabel even saying that Jay was a nice guy and it seemed like she liked him. The fact that the 3 billionaires were all working together in acquiring the company showed that they definitely knew that something was going on because they wanted to silence Mabel, Charles and Oliver. This group is the new mob, and they don't need to use violence to get what they want. They use their money and power. When the 3 conversations were taking place during the episode, Bash's one intrigued me most. There's this whole thing about his age being something that nobody knows, and him doing all that he can to stay alive and stay looking young for as long as possible. In a season that's all about progression and moving things on, he said the line, "In the right hands, technology should keep the past alive," which kinda goes against everything that this new mob stands for. So whilst Bash was made out to be a bit deranged and was seen to have a cleaver in his hand, I don't actually think he's going to be the bad guy in all of this. Camilla, on the other hand, was seen to be saying to Oliver that he needed to change everything up, get a remodel, and have his apartment essentially look new, which is something that I feel spoke volumes when connecting to this new mob, so it made me think that she could be a key player in all of this. The main takeaway from the ending of this episode, though, is that there's another main player in the game that we don't know about yet, and the finger that Jay is missing isn't the one that was found in the shrimp. Plus, the group can no longer actively speak about the three billionaires because if they do, they'll be sued for libel. So they're going to have to take a completely different approach in trying to solve this. A couple of other things that I feel are worth noting is the introduction of this new doorman robot called Lester. With this being an ever-present being that's going to be recording, I wonder if it's going to catch something happening and it's going to end up proving to be damaging for some of the suspects. Plus, I also think it's worth noting that it was said that Lester was scared of the billionaires. So I wonder if he saw something taking place down there and they wanted to take him out so they could keep him quiet. After all, keeping people quiet is what they seem to be good at the moment, even with the podcast. My review of the episode. I thought this was a pretty good episode of the show. I still think episode 2 is my favourite of the season so far because it had the OMITB personality and almost animation with its engaging pull and creative spin. But this one followed on from episode 3 nicely and developed the plot forward in a linear way. We got some great performances in this episode from the likes of Christoph, Waltz and Renee Zellweger. They embodied the stubbornness and confidence that one would imagine billionaires would have, and the almost emotionless coldness that they had not only made them seem like the perfect suspects, but it made them the complete contrast to the likes of Charles, Mabel and Oliver. They give off the feeling of the mob without truly being the mob. Personally, I would have liked more of the deeper themes in the characters to have shone through, but given that this episode was only around 30 minutes, I just don't think that the runtime would have allowed for that. We got glimpses of Mabel's insecurity about not feeling good enough, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more of Charles's worry about being left on his own and feeling like his life isn't really progressing in the direction that he wanted it to. As in the first 3, it was kind of made out like he feared being left behind. It definitely also feels like we're about to get a rivalry going on between the 2 different murder podcasts. Their rivals are 17 places above them, and with Only Murders in the Building having their listenership figures down slightly, with them now unable to talk about the case the way that they're going to want to, I think it's going to damage it even more. Was anybody else really confused why the 3 of them didn't actually look at the contract before signing it and they just dived straight on in? I get Mabel would usually be the level-headed one, and because she was the one that initiated it because of Thee, maybe she was just being naive, but it did still surprise me. Last week I said that Selena Gomez's performance was a little stale and flat, but in this episode I didn't think that at all. I thought she returned to true form and her character was a little bit easier to get behind. There was just more emotional range from her and it added to her performance well. One thing that I did feel was lacking just a bit in this episode compared to the first 3 though was the comedy. Don't get me wrong, it had comedy within it, but I don't think it was at its best and there weren't any classic Mabel, Oliver and Charles moments that were as memorable as I'd have liked them to have been. We can't have it every episode, I know that, but I know for a fact there's going to be a few standouts for sure in the upcoming ones. Right now, there are still so many suspects that it could be, and I don't even think we've been introduced to the killer yet, so I guess we'll just have to keep on watching and we'll find out eventually. So, there you have it. Only Murders in the Building Season 5, Episode 4, Ending Explained.